Okay, now that you've read chapter 4, let's go ahead and move on to today's lesson, starting with direct instruction. Remember that a significant event is when something important happens in the novel. Decide which of the following quotes are significant events and then match them with their significant measures, the reason they are significant. So a significance measure is the reason something is significant. Okay? So let's go ahead and it says to decide. We're going to decide if the quote from the novel, which is in this column, first, is it significant? Yes or no? And then, why is this quote significant? Write in the significant measure. So let's look at our box of significant measures. It has an effect. That's one way to know, one reason why something would be significant. Another reason why something's significant is because it changes people's thinking. It shows another perspective. It makes people change their ideas, it creates new emotions, and it causes people to act. These are some of the reasons why an event is significant in a novel. So let's look at the first one, which is done for us. This is an example. It says, she has gone home. Senor Aguilera sent her home. So that's from the chapter 1. And we already talked about this last week, and we know that yes, it is significant. The reason why it's significant is because it creates new emotions. It also has an effect, so you could write that as well. Both of those would be correct because we know that it has many effects, and it creates new emotions. For example, Lupita becomes worried. It causes Salvador to become worried, right? And those are actually effects also. So that could be both. It's okay to have more than one reason why it's significant. We need to list at least one reason. All right, let's look at our next quote. C, your uncle and I think it will be safer for her to travel as a boy. That's from page 38. All right. Is this a significant event in the novel? Okay, the event that we're quoting here is that Lupita has to dress like a boy. So think about that for a second. Is that significant? Does it have an effect? Does it change people's thinking? Does it show another perspective? Does it make people change their ideas, create a new emotion, or cause people to act? You know, when I think about how Lupita dresses like a boy, and then in today's chapter, when she's walking to Tijuana, or walking in Tijuana, or in chapter 3, when she's walking to Tijuana, Salvador often tells her, you can't sigh, you can't cry, you have to act like a boy. So it definitely has an effect, right? Because it causes Lupita to act differently than normal. So I'm going to say yes, it's significant, because it has an effect and it causes Lupita to act, people to act. So I'm going to put both of those. Has an effect and it causes Lupita to act, right? Specifically to act like a boy. All right, excellent. Now, the next quote, let's read this one. No, we don't have money. Salvador stepped backward alarmed, while Lupita stood behind him, frozen in terror. Okay, so something that tells me a clue of this is significant is I can see right here. It says frozen in terror and alarmed. What are those in our significance measures? Those are emotions, new emotions that are being created. This also has an effect on them, and it also actually changes the way Lupita thinks, right? About people. At one point she says something like, I can't believe I was robbed. Our own people would rob us, right? So that's changing her thinking or showing another perspective too. So this fits multiple reasons why it's significant. So we definitely want to put that yes, it's significant. And I'm going to put, I think the biggest reason why this is significant, or the easiest one to tell, is that it creates a new emotion. So I'm going to write down, creates new emotion. Let's look at our next quote. They made faster time than Salvador had expected, and they walked into Rosarita Beach with the morning only half gone. Okay, so this is about when they're walking in, they're on their way to Tijuana, and it just says that they get there faster. is this significant in any way? Does it have an effect on them? Does anything happen in the novel because they made it there faster? Not really. Does it change people's thinking? No. It doesn't show us another perspective. It doesn't make people change their ideas. There's no emotions other than just his expectation. So it was unexpected. But that's not really an emotion. Does it cause them to do anything? No. So this isn't really a significant event. Okay, so we're going to put no. This is not significant. If it's not significant, we don't have to do this part. Okay, let's look at our next quotes. Lupita and Salvador investigated Tijuana's major streets from one end to another. What things they saw? Okay, so I know that this quote is about how they're looking around Tijuana and they're seeing lots of different things. It's very different from where they grew up. Right here it says, what things they saw. So that tells me that that was creating an emotion, right? At one point, even Lupita runs away and they make fun of her, saying she's going to run all the way back to her home. But it also can change their ideas about what they think about how people live. And it has an effect because it causes them to react certain ways, right? And other things happen. So we're going to say yes, we know for sure that this is significant. Anytime you go to a new place that's different, it's significant, right? I think the biggest thing is that when you experience new things or new places, it shows it shows another perspective about life, right? There was a lot of things that Lupita saw that she had never thought about before. So I'm going to say shows another perspective. Okay, great. Once you're done with this chart, we'll be ready to go ahead and move on. You can re-rate yourself at this time if necessary. All right, let's go ahead and look at our guided practice. It says, now think about which of the quotes had the greatest effect in chapter 4. Create an effect map identifying all of the effects of this significant event in chapter 4. Okay, so when I think about which of these things happens in chapter 4, I know this is in chapter 1, so I'm not going to choose that one. We know this one isn't really significant. Dressing as a boy, but this does kind of have, we see some effects in chapter 4, so it could be this. It could also be the fact that they got robbed. That kind of follows them. It's going to follow them throughout the whole novel, so there's plenty of things that plenty of effects we could list or identify for this quote. And then Lupita and Salvador investigating Tijuana. There are a lot of effects of this, but it doesn't really carry with them throughout the novel. So at this point, I'm going to say that the fact when they got robbed, that's the most significant event, and we can see a lot of those effects in chapter 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and now that we know what we're going to quote for our significant event, I'm going to draw my event box. Okay, I'm going to label this the event. And remember, when we write a significant event from a novel, we want to quote it. So we already have that quote. So I'm going to go ahead and just look back and write it in. And it is, no, we don't have money. So I'm going to say, no, we don't have money. And this is Salvador talking. That's why we have that extra little quote around it. Because whenever we quote someone talking in a book, we have to have an extra quotation. All right. Salvador stepped backward, alarmed, while Lupita stood behind him frozen in terror. And remember to put the page number. That happened on page 45. So this happened in chapter 3, but we can see the effects, the what happened because they got robbed, all throughout chapter 4. So let's go ahead and draw some effect boxes. And don't forget, when we show an effect, we want to come up with quotes that justify, examples that justify our answer. So I'm going to put 2 lines here. Not sure if I'm going to find 2 examples, but I'm just going to draw some lines in my map. And then I want to have at least 3 effects of them getting robbed. Okay. And then again, we want to have those examples. The first effect that of them being robbed that we see, the first what happens is it causes Lupita to reveal her feelings about Salvador keeping a knife. So we're going to say reveals Lupita's, and how does the book say she feels about that again? Let's look over here. This is at the end of chapter 3 on page 47. It says, though Lupita could never tell him, she wouldn't have been sorry if it had been stolen too. It might be protection for them, but it could also get Salvador and herself into much trouble in Tijuana and over there. She remembered something Papa had overheard Papa say to Uncle Antonio. Papa had not liked Dorothea's gift to his son. He had said that a boy who carried a knife on his body carried the thought of using it in his head. And what he means by that is that if you have a knife, then you might use it, right? In order to protect yourself, you might have to hurt someone, or you might go to jail for using a weapon, right? So that's what Lupita is thinking about. So it reveals Lupita's true feelings about Salvador's knife. And we can use that example that we just read on page 47 that Lupita's dad said he would think of using it. And that's on page 47. Also on 47, she says she wouldn't be sorry if it was stolen. So those are 2 examples of the effect of them being robbed. Lupita reveals her true feelings about Salvador's knife. Make sure you have this, and then let's hit pause if you need to write it down, and let's think about some more effects of them being robbed.